Hello everybody, it's Michael from Replica Airguns with a pellet shooting CO2 revolver video. We're taking a look at the ASG Dan Wesson .177 caliber pellet shooting revolvers. Now keep in mind I have reviewed the 4.5mm steel BB version of the Dan Wessons and the 6mm plastic airsoft. When I say plastic, I'm talking about the actual BB, not the gun. These guns are primarily made out of metal with some plastic parts, but mostly metal. So make sure to check out my steel BB and plastic airsoft related Dan Wesson videos. I've made quite a few of them to date. Now this is the tabletop only version of this video. I have not done any pre-testing. I haven't shot this gun yet. I really want to, trust me. I want to shoot these guys, but the weather's been really poor outside. It's been damp, it's been cold, it's been windy, it's been dark. Not ideal situations for shooting or testing these guns. I want to give them a really good opportunity to perform properly with the right temperatures, good lighting, so I can take some nice video and all that for you guys. So yes, I'm really looking forward to shooting these guns. I mean, the whole point of the pellet version is to test the performance, and we will do that at some point down the road when the weather improves. Alright, let's talk quickly about the specifications. These guns are almost all metal design guns with a few plastic parts. I'll sort of go over those parts as I show you around the guns. Now we have the 6-inch, it's kind of a polished metal silver look right here. We also have the 8-inch, and we're talking about the barrel length, so 6-inch barrel, 8-inch barrel, and the 8-inch version is a gloss black, which is a little bit different than the BB version. The BB version is more of a metallic gray, and I'll show you that later on. Both of these guns use 12-gram CO2 cartridges, and again they shoot .177 caliber lead pellets. I suppose you could shoot other types of pellets, maybe the hypervelocity aluminum ones that have the plastic skirts. If they fit into the end of the actual shell, possibly you could use those. I haven't tried it. I don't think I'm going to be testing with those, just standard lead pellets. Probably a 7 grain will be my choice. Now, these guns have 6-round cylinders with removable shells that you preload with the pellets before you insert them into the gun. And the 6-inch version comes in at 2.25 pounds or 1,014 grams. And the 8-inch version comes in a slight bit heavier because of the longer barrel at 2.3 pounds or 1,040 grams. Both of these pistols shoot in single action and double action. So double action is when you have to pull the full length of the trigger, which then pulls the hammer back and then releases the hammer. That's double action. And single action is when you pre-cock the hammer using your thumb and then just release the hammer using the trigger. Usually has a shorter trigger pull and a lighter trigger pull in single action, so great for doing target shooting. Now the 6-inch version has a claimed FPS of 426 FPS. On the box of the 8-inch it didn't really say, it just said Joule, so I'm not sure, but I would imagine we're going to creep up a little bit, potentially add maybe another 20 FPS because of the extra 2 inches of barrel. Hard to say for sure. We'll find out when I do the chronograph test. And these are Dan Wesson licensed. They're copies of popular .357 style revolver with, again, the Dan Wesson licensing through ASG. Now these Dan Wesson pellet versions are distributed by ASG or Action Sport Games, and they're made in Taiwan. Alright, so at this point I want to show you the box that the gun comes in along with what comes in the box. So let's take a quick look. I'll just show you the 6-inch version for now. Right, but the black 8 inches, a similar box, right? You have some specifications on here on the side, little diagram. Alright, so this says rifled barrel produced and modified by Action Sport Games. So it's basically they've taken the regular Dan Wesson and modified the shells and the barrel. Alright, not too much else to show you on the box. You do get a manual, of course. I'm not going to show you everything, just go through it real quick. You know what not to do. Don't point it at your face, obviously. Don't shoot yourself in the face. This just shows you how to load the pellets, okay, into the shells. Alright, how to load CO2. Oops. Dropped it. Okay. Adjusting the sights. How to remove the rear sight so you can put on this little rail. People ask all the time, so that shows you how to do it. You have to remove that rear sight before you can put the rail on it. That's if you want to add a red dot or something. Okay, some accessories, safety rules, all that important stuff. You obviously get the speed loader. It does come with the 6 shells. Of course, you need those shells. Okay, so the speed loader comes with that. They both come with this rail. This rail comes or fits on the top, I guess, bevel up here. I'll show you that bevel later, whatever you want to call the rail here. So the other Picatinny or Weaver rail will fit on top of there. Now the black version has more of a gloss black rail, so it's more color matched. There is also an Allen key that comes with it for tightening these screws as well. Wanted to mention that. I just don't have it here to show you. Alright, at this point, let's do a quick walk around of both of these pistols. I'll show you around the guns, point out some parts. Okay, so we have our Dan Wesson writing, licensing there. Okay, serial number. That's how you open it. That's your safety. No CO2 or anything in there, right? So there's your double action. There's your single action. Dan Wesson markings there, licensing on the grips. Grips, they pull back, a little tight at first. Your CO2 goes in here. Okay, so you have a plastic tab, metal screw. Just tighten it up. Everything's well hidden though. You know, I'm not too worried about the plastic tab. Would have been nice to be metal, but you don't put too much stress on there. Okay. Let's look at the other side quickly. We have ASG, .177 caliber, 4.5 millimeter. Metric and Imperial. F for the German market. Again, some more Dan Wesson licensing. Okay, let's take a look at the top here. Hammer, rear sight, which is adjustable. Okay. Front sight has the red dot there. But the sights are adjustable. As you can see, you have the elevation and windage. Okay. Take a look at the bottom quick. No real seams to speak of too much. A little bit there, just where the two parts meet. But, you know, really nice finishing and everything. Okay. Now with these pellet versions, I'll show you when I bring in the other guns. They do have a slightly different look to the front because they've got a little bit different skirting inside to accommodate the pellet barrel, and I'll show you the difference later. Okay, let's crack it open, and you can see we have our pellet shells, and they are different. Essentially, you just unscrew them like this, and I'm just going to grab a pellet for you guys. I haven't loaded one yet, so you just pop the pellet in like that. Okay, and then screw it in. I'm just trying to get the threading just right. Now I think you need to really tighten them down, because what you're doing when you're tightening it down is you're pushing that pellet forward more. So let's see if I can get this to focus. There is what it looks like with the pellet in it. Trying to get it to focus. There, finally, focused. Okay, so that's what it looks like, all done. Alright, so we'll leave that one out for now. But they are really high quality shells. They're much heavier than the other BB versions or airsoft versions because they're a much more solid material, because obviously when you have the threading you're going to have to use higher quality materials. Probably steel. Actually, you know what, let's find out. Are these steel? I would hope so. I'm going to say yes. This part is steel. Definitely. So the end caps are steel. This is probably an aluminum, high quality aluminum here, but the end piece is steel. Okay, so that's going to help with threading a little bit. Okay, parts that are plastic again. Really, the only parts that are plastic are the grips, as far as I can tell, and the tab on both of these. Quickly going to show you the 8-inch version. Okay, it's just basically black, same gun. In black. Okay, looks nice though. Same markings and licensing on the gun. Same safety, same everything, same sights, adjustable for windage and elevation, except for you have a white dot in the front here because the red wouldn't show as good. Okay, same way to load it up with CO2. Same shell system. Alright. All the same markings. Just basically longer barrel and finish with the gloss black. Alright, at this point I'm going to bring in some of my other pistols, the airsoft and pellet versions. Now I have my 8-inch, and this 8-inch version is a pellet, or sorry, a BB version. But you'll notice it's a different color. It's more of a metallic gray. And it's nice. There's definitely nothing wrong with the finish. Kind of like the black. You know, they're definitely different. Not sure what you prefer or what I prefer. I like them both. But what I want to show you is the differences in the shells and the differences in the barrel. You know what? I'm going to show you the difference in the barrel with the silver one. It's easier to see. But I will show you the difference in shells. So this is a BB shell as compared to a pellet shell. And you can see that they are rather different. They're lighter. They're probably not made out of as high quality materials. Okay, you've got a little larger pathway through there. And the BB just goes in the front. Let me grab one here. Just pops in the front like that. So it's easier to load for sure, quicker to load, but you're using a BB as opposed to a pellet. Okay, so put those down for now. And I'm going to show you this guy here. So here's an airsoft version, and you'll notice how the barrel, just the whole way it's done is different, quite a bit different than, for instance, the pellet version. The skirting comes out much further. Okay, so there's a much tighter lining in there. Even if I compare to the BB version, that's more recessed. It's just not as, I would say that the quality isn't there as good. And of course, these pellet versions are going to have rifled barrels. They're probably a higher quality metal in there to be able to retain the rifling over time. You know, with that BB, especially airsoft plastic BBs, you don't really need to worry so much about the barrel because it's not taking as much of a beating. It doesn't have to retain the rifling, which is important to a pellet. The pellet needs to have a rifled barrel so that it's going to spin. The pellet will spin, which will give it better accuracy, right? So that's kind of the whole point behind that. Now, I do want to show you an airsoft round here. So you notice the airsoft round is larger in the front, and it takes an airsoft BB. So now we have all three of these to show you guys. Okay, so pellet, steel BB, airsoft. And you have to use the right ammo, of course, in each shell and in each gun because the barrel diameters are slightly different. These two you could maybe get away with using, you might be able to get away with using a steel BB shell in the .177 caliber Dan Wesson, but I wouldn't do it because you're going to potentially ruin the rifling in the barrel over time. Just use pellets, lead pellets, and airsoft. There you go there, okay? So that's those guys. Alright, at this point I want to talk a little bit about some of the pros and the cons. And a lot of the pros and cons are going to be the same, whether I'm talking about airsoft, steel BB, or pellet, because, you know, overall the guns are really almost identical, other than the shells and the barrel and what type of ammunition they shoot. But other than that, they're pretty much the same. Alright, so the first pro is it's a revolver with actual shells that you load into the gun. You preload the ammo into the shell, then the shell goes into the gun. It really gives you that feeling of shooting a real gun, a real 6-shooter, like a real revolver, that is. And these guns use pretty much an all-metal design, so they have good weight to them. They feel good in the hand. They're fairly good quality overall. Lots of detail in these guns. They're super well made. Fit and finish is very good. Of course, they have the Dan Wesson licensing on them as well. Now, this is getting into just the pellet version. It should have pretty darn good power. If it shoots 423 FPS or whatever it is, 426 in the 6-inch version, that's the same velocity as a steel BB, or at least that's what ASG is saying. They're saying that the pellets are going to be flying or going or traveling as fast as a steel BB. Now, the pellets have, generally speaking, more mass. So steel BB will come in at 5.1 grain. A lead pellet weighs about 7 grain. That's just an average lead pellet, sort of on the lower weight side. So it's going to have more mass. It's going to do a little more damage when it hits a target, and potentially with more accuracy, especially out at longer ranges because of the rifled barrel. The spinning pellet will travel better through the air. It won't spin off, especially as it gets further out. Now, as with all the Dan Wessons, they do have the adjustable rear sights for windage and elevation. And getting back to the pellet version, I would have to say that the shell, the new pellet shell, is a better design. It's better quality overall. I think it uses better materials. And it has to, really. To be able to have that threaded portion that you're going to be unscrewing and screwing a lot, you do have to make sure that the material is up to par. And that said, with the rifled barrel on these guns, the way that barrel is integrated into the gun, it wasn't really so much of an afterthought. It looks like ASG, at least I would say, from my looking at the gun, the way that barrel is fitted in there It's done with a lot of thought. It isn't Mickey Moused in there. It's a quality barrel, so this gun should perform well using pellets. Again, I can't wait to actually do the testing for this gun. Alright, a couple cons. Again, there's the plastic CO2 tab. In my experience though, I haven't seen any of these plastic CO2 tabs fail. There just really isn't that much force being placed on them. You shouldn't be tightening your CO2 up so much that you're breaking the tabs. If you are, you're doing something wrong. Now, loading the lead pellets in the pellet version is going to take longer than just popping a BB in either the 4.5mm steel BB version or the 6mm airsoft version. So those guns you'll be able to load up a little quicker. But again, you're not going to get as good performance in my opinion as you will with pellets. Now, being that this gun is shooting a heavier grain pellet at approximately the same velocity according to ASG, I would expect that the CO2 valve is releasing more CO2 with each shot. So you will get less shots, or you should get less shots per CO2 with this gun. Now, with the regular Dan Wesson 4.5mm steel BB version, I would generally get as many as over 100 plus shots using a standard CO2. So I would expect to get somewhere around 70 or 80 decent shots, hopefully using the pellet version. Alright, that wraps up this tabletop review of the Dan Wesson 6-inch silver and 8-inch black pellet revolvers. Don't forget to subscribe. Check me out on Facebook and Twitter. The username is Replica Airguns. Also come on down to replicaAirguns.ca where we have these guns listed in our Canada online Replica Airguns store. They're in there right now, ready to buy. And of course, I'll have my written review at replicaAirguns.com where I'll have additional photos and my full written article for you to check out. So thanks for watching another Replica Airguns video. Until next time, take care.